Yikes! Had a technical glitch. YouTube went down on me. Middle went down on me. Ooh, that sounds really dirty. It YouTube crashed on me. So we're going to resume exactly where we left off. We're going to pick up where we left off. Easy for me to say, with our interview and our recap of the Nostalgic Podblast 3 tribute to the Honeymooners. So here we go. Here is the rest of the story.
On DVD, you know. Hey,
Al was asking me, well, can you get me that McMillions from HBO on DVD? No, I can't. It's not been released on DVD. Just stream it on HBO Max like everyone else.
Now, you know where the Honeymooners lived. They lived at Chauncey Street, right? And that's where Jackie Gleason really grew up.
Oh, really? But they didn't mention the street very much, though, did they?
They did a few times, but my favorites are the live sketches. This is before Saturday Night Live. This was when they were on Saturday night on CBS. Started with the Dumont Network, which failed.
Right.
It was on from 51 to 52.
Well, that's what's in this right here, right?
Yeah, that set it's on DVD from MPI Home Video. And as we described previously, it's really cool. Back then,
kind of a big box
there was no
set
videotape in the 50s. They would literally film a monitor, the live monitor, and that's how they would transmit it.
What's the Dumont camera
to the West Coast?
Yeah.
And Jackie had the forethought to put everything in a vault. And then in 1984, he had a press conference and he released, oh, look what I found. Lost episodes beyond the classic 39. And those skits are great. And Alice's mom, she actually started in the live skits playing Aunt Ethel of Alice. Same type character, you know, gruff, picking on Ralph. But then when it became the classic 39 series, she played Alice's mom, Ralph's mother-in-law. And he always had bouts. And she seemed to, by the way, Audrey Meadows, I've screwed up in the pre-recorded. She played Ted Knight's character's mother-in-law in Too Close for Comfort. I said Nancy DeSalt, Big Whoop. I'm just a
And what was the last movie with Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason?
That would be Nothing in Common from 1985.
It was a sad movie.
It was a sad movie, and I really wish that Jackie had won an Oscar. He was nominated for The Hustler.
Another great movie with Paul Newman.
That we talked about.
Yeah.
And in the interview that Audrey Meadows did with Pat Sajak, the title of the episode, she got it wrong. It's called Better Living Through TV of the Classic 39. And that's where Ralph and Ed go on TV in one of Ralph's get-rich-quick schemes to sell a product called the Handy Housewife Helper. And while they were filming it, there was a live blooper. It was, well, the Classic 39 weren't live, unlike, but it was taped before an audience. It was filmed for an audience, and a piece of the prop went flying. And Jackie was so quick, his line was ad lib. That's perfect for spearfishing. No laugh there? Okay.
No.
I thought we had to see it. Anyway.
I guess I had to see it.
But the point is, Jackie was really quick. And a movie I want to mention, Brad Garrett starred in it. It's a 2002 movie called Gleason. And Brad Garrett, he plays Jackie Gleason to a T. We watched that.
We watched it. I liked it okay. You know, he did kind of like favor Jackie Gleason. But, you know, I enjoyed it.
One of my favorite bits of the Classic 39 is in the golfer episode.
Hello, ball.
You stole my thunder. Yes. Address the ball.
Yes.
And then mental case.
Well,
Ed Norton goes,
what was funny, though, is the way he was dressed. You know,
Jackie was dressed like a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, you know, he had the hat and he had that goofy sweater and he just. You know.
But what show did Ed like to watch that was big in the 50s? It was kind of a sci-fi show. He loved it. He was in the fan club.
Oh, he put that
Captain Video and the Video Rangers.
Yeah, he put that helmet on or something.
He put a big space helmet, looked like a fishbowl on his head. But
why did you turn the lights off?
Because then I can tell if there's a call coming in. The board lights up
right there. Chance turned the lights off in the studio. I just wonder why I'm in the dark.
I'm getting fresh with you, Al.
Yeah. Well, turn them back on. Okay, there we go. I can see now. But that was funny. I don't know how many episodes they made
of the live skits.
Well, no, with the Captain Video.
Oh, I don't know about that.
There only was a few that he was, you know, he did that.
We have to give a shout out to a wonderful company called Gold Medal Products. And what they do is they make popcorn makers, and they're based here in Atlanta, right near Six Flags over Georgia. And, you know, the thought is that, you know, it dawned on me, there's so many people spending thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in Atlanta on intricate home theater systems. Nobody's going to movie theaters anymore. We saw an article, AMC Theaters is declaring bankruptcy.
Well, they haven't declared bankruptcy. They're not doing very well. Now, Regal sold out to a company in Canada?
It's a British company.
A British company bought them, yeah.
But the thing is, it's called disintermediation. What's happening is people are buying their own home theater systems, and they're bypassing the movie theater. So the movie theater chains like AMC, they're really struggling right now.
Well, I enjoy watching movies at home on my theater.
But the cool thing about Gold Medal is that they service their products and they will deliver popcorn right to your door. Al, how much is a case? How many of those popcorn bags are in a case, like the case that I
36.
bought from them, for only $26?
Yeah. And they're pre-packaged. You got the right amount of salt. You got the right amount of popcorn.
And the unit that you bought from Gold Medal, that's a countertop. It's a small unit and it works really well. It's efficient.
It's a 4-ounce kettle.
I want people to go to gmpopcorn.com. That's gmpopcorn.com and look at their online showroom, and they have a wonderful catalog. These things start at only $500 and it makes your whole house smell like a movie theater. It's fantastic. And they have an event coming up March 4th and 5th. And what this is, it's their factory super sale. And I've been to their showroom. It's phenomenal. You're going to love it. And your kids, it's such a great family thing to have real home theater popcorn. The kids love it. You'll be the hit of your neighborhood. So check out Gold Medal.
I want to ask you, of the Honeymooners, of the 39 episodes, do you have a favorite?
It would have to be Funny Money. We played that clip where Ralph finds a satchel full of cash in the back of his bus, and he thinks he finally hit it rich, and he struggles with what is the right thing to do. Alice is persuading him to turn the money in instead of spending it. Well, he spends it, but it's all counterfeit money.
Yeah, and the thugs come after him. But what was funny about it, when he found the suitcase and he brought it home and he opened it, the look on his face. That's what it to me is all his expressions in his face. I mean, his just eyes came popping out. It was funny.
That's the thing. These clips do translate to radio, but really a lot of them are visual, And,
that's true.
And I would strongly suggest getting the kinescopes. I love the live skits better. It's pre-Saturday Night Live. It's just classic comedy.
Well, I've seen the 39 so many times. I'm so used to them. I mean, I can watch them over and over again, but I've seen the early ones, in that first box set there, but I haven't seen all of them.
What's your favorite Jackie Gleason movie?
His favorite movie?
Yeah, your favorite movie Jackie Gleason did.
Well, The Toy was kind of an oddball movie. I liked it. Probably.
Which one?
He was in The Toy.
Oh, yeah.
Movie called The Toy.
With Richard Pryor.
Yeah. He was also in a remake of The Sting, and that was terrible. I guess my favorite movie was The Hustler with Paul Newman. I just liked his character in it.
And he was nominated for an Academy Award for that.
Yeah, I like that. And I think we have another phone call. Let's go to the phones. Hello, who is this?
Hello.
Hello. Hey, I hear a doggy.
I hear a dog. Who is this?
Nostalgic Pop Culture Podblast.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm outside. I just heard you guys mention The Toy.
Yeah, The Toy. Yeah.
Two comedic geniuses that made one of the worst movies of all time.
Oh, I know. It was just, I mean, I've got some posters for it, and I sell posters on eBay, by the way, and I can't sell that poster.
Hey, Ryan, didn't the kid go on to have like a nefarious career after The Toy? The kid from The Toy.
He did, but you guys are on radio, and I'm going to keep this clean for the listeners. But yes, he did.
He did an adult movie or something.
Yes, he made some X-rated movies.
Wow! But no, The Toy. I saw it in the theaters, and I says, "Oh my gosh, this movie is just not very good." It's just.
It was great. I love The Toy. What are you talking
about?
I
went to see it because of Jackie Gleason. I went and saw
it
because of Gleason, and because I'm a big fan of his. Richard Pryor's okay. I like some of his stuff.
But who was the girl in it? Teresa Ganzel, I think's her name, who played Jackie's wife, the trophy wife, some blonde with big.
Oh, yeah, the young trophy wife. I don't remember her name, but she was quite
Teresa.
A few of those.
I'm gonna look it up on my phone, but she was a dish.
But honestly, this is a great topic. Jackie Gleason is obviously a comedy genius. I'm not really breaking any ground there.
He was one of the best.
Certainly stand up and. The thing about the Honeymooners, to me anyways, is every other show was all about like a healthy family life. And the Honeymooners kind of really showed what real life was. And everybody doesn't really get along, and you argue, and you have these problems. It was brilliant and ahead of its time. Very
No,
nice.
I guess it's why I like the Flintstones so much, because it was patterned after the Honeymooners, and I was a big Flintstones fan at one time.
Caller, wouldn't you say that
there's a reason why the Flintstones ran for so long? I mean, think about it. I mean, it's brilliant.
Wouldn't you
It really is.
say that the point of the toy was, or the message was, that money can't buy happiness, or am I misremembering? Or did it not even have a damn point?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that is basically the point. I know this is off topic, but Richard Pryor, who was in the toy, also did the Brewster's Millions, which was also the same point. Money doesn't buy you happiness. Yeah, and another not so great movie, but it has a lot of great people in it. A lot of comedy.
I love
geniuses.
Richard Pryor. Him and George Carlin are among my favorite comedians of all time, and Red Fox. But Richard Pryor, man, we're going to do a show on Richard Pryor one day. I just think
Richard Pryor's top of the heap.
And you can't even mention some of his comedy record titles, because of today's standards,
Pryor
you cannot
was
even.
One of a kind. He was very funny. Yeah. I mean, and he made several, movies that were like of his concert tours. His stand up work.
Yeah, and they're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic.
One of my favorite movies he did is Bustin' Loose.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bustin' Loose, because it reminds me of what we're doing here at WTZA. Okay, there's a great speech where he talks to the kids and he goes, "We are not losers. We're not going to give up." They were trying to go across country in a bus. No, seriously, because Al and I were very deflated when our station was sold, and thank goodness for Will Regan bringing the weekday crew back. I mean, this is just, we are all over the moon, right, and we are so super pumped as a team. I'm on the sales side. I do this as a hobby with Al, but I mean, we're all just so happy to be here, and man.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thanks for calling, bud. I guess I'm
loving the show. I'm like really way under the weather, so.
Oh no!
I'm just I have it on in the background. I've kind of fallen asleep, not because of the content of the show, but because
yeah, right.
You don't have the coronavirus, do you?
No, I don't. Thank God. I went to the doctor, and they made it clear that I don't have that. So
well, you can sit next to Chance and get him sick. Don't get close to me.
And for our listeners,
no, I'm gonna give you guys a break, man. I'm gonna be next to you guys for a while, man.
Okay. Well,
I'm certainly not going to be better for a few days.
All right. Why don't you make it a point to come to the next recording a week from this Sunday? How's that?
Oh yeah, I would love to, man. I really appreciate you guys.
I mean,
be a part of the show.
No offense. I don't want to.
I wish you guys just continued success.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. You're a good friend, and get well. Okay.
Get well soon, bud.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care.
Okay,
right.
Bye.
Now, Ryan, he joins our show later on because we're airing our previously recorded segments, but we're eventually going to catch up and it'll be an entirely live show. But we have to go to a break, and we will be back after the commercial break. Remember, 678-996-1776. What's
2020 is a huge year for politics and a presidential election right around the corner. After a banner year in the stock market, do you know the 5 investments that you should be making right here in 2020? Is this a year to buy gold, tech stocks, or should you be moving to cash? Go to oxygenfinancial.com right now and get our free guide on the 5 investments you must own in your portfolio for 2020. Go to oxygenfinancial.com right now to get the free Oxygen Financial 2020 investment guide and get your portfolio to work harder for you this year.
My son had been injured and he was prescribed pain opiates. No one ever told us how highly addictive these drugs were. My initial reaction was...
We'll be back live in a minute, folks. Live. Taking your calls, 770-438-1050.
Out there who don't have hope.
Stay tuned.
I realize there's a lot of families that are torn apart, but...
In 10 minutes, we'll be live, taking your calls to talk about the Honeymooners or whatever else you want to talk about. And I'm sorry that YouTube went down.
Help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. 866-490-3991. 866-490-3991. That's 866-490-3991.
He's back. Florida man goes on Grindr. You know what Grindr is? Isn't that the gay version? Yes, it is. Tinder. Gay guys. All right. Florida man goes on Grindr, meets man from Grindr at house to buy meth. steals the meth from the man. Man tries to stab Florida Man, but Florida Man ends up stabbing him. Man shoots Florida Man with gun. Florida Man calls the cops on him.
Hey, officer, I was stealing this guy's meth and he freaking shot me.
The Kimmer Show, afternoon drive 4 to 7 on WTZA 102.1 and AM 1010. We are the talk of Atlanta.
And we are back. We have about 13 minutes left here before the top of the hour. We're talking about the Honeymooners and Jackie Gleason. He was the subject of our Podblast. It just aired. Any other things we need to know about Jackie Gleason before we wrap it up?
No, just that he was a prolific talent and he had a photographic memory. He could memorize a script. Practically,
like I said, he didn't rehearse. When they shot the show, they did it. He didn't like to rehearse
and that
anything.
drove his co-stars nuts because they liked to rehearse. They were Broadway trained actors. Now, interestingly enough, Audrey Meadows won several Emmys, and so did Art Carney. Or she won one Emmy, and Art Carney won a couple for the Honeymooners. But Jackie sadly was omitted, and he was the real rock behind the show. It's kind of like Kimmer getting omitted from the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame. I think that's a disgrace.
But anyway, Jackie Gleason, he's one of my all-time favorites. And you had mentioned Richard Pryor, and I like Richard Pryor. But, he can't top Jackie Gleason.
But Richard Pryor's stand-up comedy
is different.
It's different. I think they're equals in a different way.
Right.
And there was another death in pop culture land. Now, I talked earlier about how I love the Jeffersons and how I bought the entire series. And I just love that Norman Lear spinoff of All in the Family.
Well, the Decades Channel is doing a binge weekend of the Jeffersons.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, the only surviving cast member is Marla Gibbs, who played Florence, the housekeeper. Right. However, remember the theme song, Moving On Up?
Yep.
Janet Dubois sung that, and she was an actor in Good Times, another spinoff from All in the Family, and actually from Maude. Maude, it was a show that...
Was she a Maude?
Yeah, actually, Florida was. The character Florida was Maude's housekeeper.
I don't remember.
And then
I
it
didn't
spun
care
off
for
into
Maude
Good
too
Times.
Much, but
anyway, she passed away, and she was an actor on Good Times, and she sang the song, the theme song, "Moving On Up" from the Jeffersons. So, God bless you, Janet.
And she wasn't that old. I think she's like 74.
She's in her 70s or something.
Like that. Still,
it all depends on your perspective. If someone's in their 20s listening to this, they're going to say 74 is old.
But not when you get close to it.
That's true. That's true. Man, so is there a special affinity towards live comedy? Like, what's your favorite live comedy show that's running today?
I never was a stand-up comic kind of guy. I didn't, there were some that I liked. I mean, I guess the one that I liked the most was Rodney Dangerfield, if that's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about shows that are sitcoms that are live. There's not many anymore. The only ones I can think of is the Jimmy Kimmel Revival with Norman Lear, and they do it as a special, and they're not bad. I mean, the All in the Family one was different, but the Jeffersons one was
Jimmy
fantastic.
Kimmel?
I don't think
I'm not a big fan of his.
I'm not a big fan. There's no one like the classics of late night comedy, like David Letterman, Johnny Carson. I'm old. That's who I grew up with.
And Carson was the best. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Who I like nowadays is Conan O'Brien.
I do like Conan. I do.
That's the only thing
but
on
it's
TBS.
only a half hour. I mean, it's just like by the time it starts, it's over.
He got the shaft.
Well, why didn't TBS put it back to an hour?
Look, man, NBC has a history of screwing over talent. Like David Letterman should have taken over from Johnny Carson back in the day. And the reason he didn't is because Dave would chastise the sponsors. General Electric bought NBC. And did you ever watch Late Night with David Letterman in the 80s?
Yeah, of course I did.
Well, he would always make fun of GE and call them like crappy products. And he would go to the corporate office and try to, like doing his man on the street interview, give them like this big box of fruit. And, that pissed off the network. Now, Jay Leno was more of a company man. He would kind of schmooze, more of a salesman. So that's kind of why, in my opinion, why Letterman didn't take over, although, he was the true predecessor, or who should have taken over afterwards. But, and then Conan O'Brien, he got screwed over. He should have taken over the Tonight Show
before
from Jay Leno.
Yeah, that's true.
And he did for a while, right?
He and then I don't think it's hardly a year, was it? I mean, I don't remember, but I know he did it for a while, but then they took him off. Man.
Well, I like Conan. He's got some good bits and stuff, and he's not overly political. Like, you can tell where he leans and stuff, but it's not overt. It's not like Colbert. He's talking about,
Well,
Putin's
Carson would do political jokes, but it was funny. It wasn't mean spirited. He was funny when he did them. I mean, it was great.
and he did jokes on both sides.
Yeah,
it
of
wasn't
course he did.
one-sided.
It was so funny. In Carson, he had the boom mic, and then like if the joke flopped, it would come down and go.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing on?
Yeah, I think Gossett does that too. It's funny.
It's kind of funny,
But Gossett never bombs.
No, he's a funny man. He really likes.
It's really a treat to work alongside him. Newsmakerline.com. So what is your favorite? I'm caller 678-996-1776. Call us and let us know, what is your favorite Richard Pryor movie, Jackie Gleason movie? Do you have a story about Smokey and the Bandit?
We have 4 minutes.
How about that line from Jackie and Smokey and the Bandit? What is this world coming to? He was so irreverent in that movie. When he had the toilet paper,
oh yeah,
it goes out of the barbecue joint, and he's.
I need to pull out that DVD and watch it. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Man, I've got that in Blu-ray, DVD, several formats. Smokey and the Bandit is a classic, and of course, we got to give props to someone who brought Smokey and the Bandit to Atlanta. You know who I'm talking about? Ed, who sadly just passed away.
Oh yeah, they have the Lakewood.
Lakewood 400 Antique Market.
Well, they had the Lakewood Studios too over there,
and that's Screen Gems. Screen Gems brought that property.
Yeah, Screen Gem is there now.
Ed Spivey.
He was a wonderful guy, and he was friends with Burt Reynolds, the late great Burt Reynolds, and he was really the predecessor to the great tax incentive program that's going on in Georgia right now that Governor Deal enacted, and our state representatives.
There's so many movies made here. I mean, if people will sit down and watch the end credits of movies, you'll always see the Georgia peach in the end credits.
And they get an additional tax credit to show that peach. That's why the peach is displayed. It's a 30% tax break.
Now, I was watching a TV show last night, actually, and it came up. It had the peach before the show started. It was something on Showtime, but I can't remember what it was. It had the peach right before the show started.
I'm not familiar with why that would be.
I don't know
why it would be at the front of the
peach.
show.
It has
to be about the Benjamins, dollars and cents.
I guess it was, but usually it's on the end credits.
But there's so many productions being filmed here. We're like the #1 place to make movies in the country. I mean, LA, they better step it up and come up with some tax programs. The thing is, though, most of the casting, except for Tyler Perry's given people breaks in Atlanta for some good, substantial roles. But most of the major roles are still cast out of L.A., New York, or Chicago.
But they're filming here, which is fine.
They are. There are some supporting roles that have dialogue,
and a lot of people. I have a good friend of mine. His name is Eric. He's a video assist, and he stays busy on all these movies. I mean, we saw Godzilla. He worked on that. That was
King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters. Yeah. But he stays really busy
on the productions behind the camera. You are correct.
Right.
There's plenty of work. Although some crew
always busy
with the unions, they get shipped in from LA and stuff in New York. But there are some big opportunities behind the camera in Georgia, and you can make a really good living. But you work long hours, man, like over 12-hour days. They get the weekends off, but man, I could not work those hours because you are sleep deprived, but you eat good. Craft services.
It's not fun work.
No, because I worked.
It's more fun watching the movie.
Like Larry WACHS. I worked in background in Atlanta from 2010 until I guess 2014 or so, and I got an agent, and they told me not to do extra work anymore if you want to be taken seriously as an actor. But I had so much fun on so many sets, like Walking Dead, and the food is phenomenal.
The food is good.
Except they kind of separate it. I'm giving away a little Hollywood secret, but like the background, the lowly extras get one line of food, and the crew who are union get the good stuff. But some productions let everyone eat from the same table, that's always a treat.
All right, we have to say goodbye. I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. We'll be back next week.
We will. And next week, here's a little preview of what we'll discuss. Next week on the Nostalgic Pop Culture Podblast, here's what we'll be talking about.
Are you old enough to remember this?
The Fugitive. A QM production.
If you remember that, then tune in Saturday at 2 p.m. to the Nostalgic Pop Culture Podblast. This week, the classic Quinn Martin TV dramas are explored. Join us for interviews with the stars, classic clips, and lots of memories, plus your phone calls. That's the Nostalgic Pop Culture Podblast. Saturdays at 2 p.m. right here on Talk of Atlanta, WTZA 102.1 FM, 1010 AM, and talkofatlanta.com.
Hey, it's a Kimmer. How's it going? I think
Back with you live. 770-438-1050 is the phone number. Have some stuff I want to read to you about the Dumont Network, some history here. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. So way back in 1949, the Dumont Network started, and they had the Cavalcade of Stars. Actually, it started before 1949. Forgive me, I'm a little verklempt. June 4th, 1949 was the date that the Cavalcade of Stars, which is a comedy variety show, began on the Dumont Network, and it ran until September 26th, 1952, when Jackie Gleason went to CBS. Now, in the beginning, the MC was Jack Carter. You know who Jack Carter is. He's a great personality from 49 to 50. I'll get back to it in a minute. We have a call coming in. Let's see here. The Nostalgic Podblast. Who is this?
Hey, it's BK calling. Good morning, good evening. Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going, Barry King of BK on the Air and WBHF every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to noon, and everywhere on TuneIn and everywhere you find your great podcast that you enjoy.
You give me the best introductions. I love that. You're awesome.
Thanks. I try.
Wow, Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners. Where do I even begin? I mean, come on. How can you even start about talking about the great one?
That's right. His moniker, the Great One, Jackie Gleason, with the photographic memory.
And he's one of the rare folks that actually lives up to that nickname, because you can't carry a name called the Great One and not live up to it, but he did. And if I've ever asked what is my favorite sitcom of all time in television history, sometimes it kind of battled back and forth between the Honeymooners and All in the Family, because they were two wonderful, groundbreaking shows. And if someone answers I Love Lucy, there's no incorrect answer to the question. It's all kind of personal when it comes to your personal favorite shows. And with all due, I apologize to all the friendly I Love Lucy folks who might be listening. So yeah, to borrow a little Smokey and the Bandit line there, but yeah, Jackie Gleason. My dad introduced me to Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners. We used to watch them late night. WGNX, I think Channel 46 played them late in Atlanta.
They did
back in the late 70s, early 80s, and they would also play. They would air the Miami version of the shortened version of the Jackie Gleason show as well, and that's where I discovered it. And my favorite funny man, comedic actor, one of my favorites of all time is Jackie Gleason. What a talent the man was.
Yeah, he was. And did you ever see American Scene magazine that Jackie did?
I've only seen one, because there was one that was kind of released on I don't know if it was public domain at the time, but there's only one of those that I've seen on videotape that they had released a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few on video and some kinescopes, and it was a pretty cool show. But yeah, Jackie Gleason, there'll never be another personality like that. I was so sad when he died, and man, but his movie, I love the one with Tom Hanks that we talked about earlier in the show, Nothing in Common. That's a great, speaking of Father's Day, that's a great Father's Day movie, I think. And I should have mentioned that Sunday.
Yeah, did Gary Marshall direct Nothing in Common, I believe?
I don't know about that. Let me look that up.
Yeah, I think Gary Marshall, the guy who created Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, Penny Marshall's brother, directed Nothing in Common. Well, the weird thing about Nothing in Common is I thought Jackie's performance was Jackie gave a better performance overall than the film was. I enjoyed his performance more than I liked the film. I didn't think the film was that great. It wasn't a big bang of him to go out on for him to go out on. But yeah, the Honeymooners is great. He was. It was amazing how he could look at a script and know it. I wish I had the superpower of looking at a script and knowing the dialogue after I read it. That would be great to be able to do that.
Mary Lou Henner had that same gift.
Yeah, I didn't know that about her. That's interesting. Yeah.
Now, what was the movie Jackie did where he played a deaf mute? Remember that?
Yeah, that was directed by Gene Kelly, the dancer actor. Gene Kelly. It's a movie called Guijot. I think it's I don't know how you spell it. It's a French name, but it's a Guijot.
Yeah, I think it's Gidot. Yeah, Gidot.
It was very critically acclaimed, from what I understand. I think it was a box office bomb, though, for some reason. But I do have it. I have a VHS copy of it. It may be on DVD. I haven't looked. But he was amazing because what's funny is he played the clip in the show that everyone heard about his appearance on the Johnny Carson show back when Nothing in Common came out. And what's interesting is Tom Hanks appeared on David Letterman about the same week or near that, talking about Nothing in Common. So they were both on competing talk shows talking about the same movie. And Jackie had mentioned in that interview on Johnny Carson saying, Johnny mentioned Tom Hanks, and you can hear Jackie. So yes, fine, wonderful actor, giving Tom accolades. And Tom was talking about Jackie on the set of Nothing in Common about his some escapade that he might have been involved in with a little bit of tipping back of the sauce, maybe, like he was known to do. Yes.
Yeah, the rumor is, well, I read it in the book. I don't know if it's true, but Jackie, who would drink like a mini keg of beer some nights and drink and eat pizza, and that's why he got so big. Because in the beginning of the Honeymooners and the live sketches, he wasn't all that bloated and big, but as it got more successful and he made more money, CBS paid him that fat contract. He indulged a little bit.
And if you remember, Jackie Gleason played Riley on Life of Riley before William Bendix took over in the television series Life of Riley, long before the Honeymooners.
That's right.
Yeah, which was kind of odd because William Bendix, I think, played him on the radio, and then he finally took over the role on television. But yeah, you're talking in the thing about your favorite Jackie Gleason movie. There's a few to choose from, and some great performances. Now, unfortunately, he was in some movies that didn't do that well. But what's funny about if a movie didn't do well and Jackie was in it, you can bet your bottom dollar that Jackie was great in the film, whether it was a good film or not. Because I'm with you. I heard some of the guys talking on the flashback here that we were listening to about Jackie Gleason, that they didn't care for the toy. I thought the toy was funny as heck with him and Richard Pryor and the young kid Scott Schwartz, the kid who gets his tongue caught to the pole in Christmas Story.
Right.
Scotty Schwartz. I've met Scotty a couple of times. He's a nice guy, and the toy was funny. It was a remake of a loose remake of a French film, a foreign film called The Toy. And I thought it was funny. I think it was just a string of scenes. It wasn't a complete film as you watch it. It was almost like, okay, let's film this little scene with them, and then go on to this little scene, and then go on to this little scene. It was directed by Superman director Richard Donner, and I thought that I gave The Toy a thumbs up. I really did.
I do too. I think it's a generational thing with those older dudes. I don't know, but I loved it. I thought it was hilarious and heartfelt. It had a really good heart to that story.
One of the big bombs Jackie did was he was on a little stupid game show back in the 50s. It was called You're in the Picture. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Right. Tell us.
Yeah, I think celebrities would show up, put their face through a cutout in a picture, like their face inside the picture, and they were given clues by other folks looking at them, and they were supposed to guess what they were, like if their head was on a horse or a dog or something like that. And it was considered one of the biggest bombs on television. It wasn't very good, and I think Jackie went on next week and apologized for the show, and then it took 30 minutes. The 30-minute spot for that show the next week was spent with him apologizing for the show, and they said his 30-minute apology was hilarious and much funnier than the show was a week before.
Oh man, it sucks to hear that he had a bomb like that back that early when he was getting started. Yeah,
but he didn't have anything to do with it. I don't think he invented the show, or he was just on it and was asked to host it. I'm not sure that he had anything to do with the creativity of it. But it was amazing. But what a big giant talent. Smoking the Bandit's probably my favorite. I have to pick a movie that's my favorite Jackie Gleason film. Smokey and the Bandit will probably be my favorite, best film that he did. And surprisingly enough, Alfred Hitchcock loved Smokey and the Bandit.
I did not know that. I never heard that story.
He did. It might not have been his favorite film, but he has been quoted somewhere, and I've read it in so many places, that I tend to believe it. It was it's one of Alfred Hitchcock's. He loved that movie, and I thought that's an odd thing to be. But hey, why wouldn't Alfred Hitchcock love it? It's a fun comedic film, and it's well done, and it's really a great movie, and it made money for a reason. It was really great.
So many great one-liners in that. I mean, just it's a classic. I said on the show earlier, actually, I saw it at a drive-in theater, the Starlight, here in the Atlanta area in 2007.
Oh, wow.
But get this, there was a booze vendor there giving out booze at a drive-in.
Yeah, I heard you say that on the air. Yeah, I heard
Absolutely true. I remember I had a swig, just one, because I was driving, but I couldn't believe that. How could that be legal? You know what I mean? Oh, well.
And how weird is it that I mentioned earlier that All in the Family is another great, one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. Jackie Gleason was slated to play Archie Bunker before Carol O'Connor was chosen, and Jackie, I understand, turned it down.
Right. He probably would have been about the right age to play that part, too.
And he turned it down. I read that he turned it down because it was a lewd, kind of a controversial show, which it was. It was kind of lewd and a little bit tasteless, according to him. Some of the subject matter he didn't like that. He didn't like that some of these shows, these realistic, shows about things coming in, wiping out all the older shows that run. But how weird it was that he complained about it being that way, and then he goes on to play Sheriff Buford T. Justice in Smoking the Bandit, which used a lot of bad language too. So, I guess he was okay with that, doing it by that point. By 1977, I guess he was all right with it.
Well, I think he saw how successfully the number one All in the Family became, and he's like, "Shit, maybe I made a mistake," because these characters are kind of similar. They're racist, they're kind of boisterous. They're just anti-heroes, both of them. So I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to. And the movie was the number 2 movie of 1977, wasn't it? It was after Star Wars.
It was the number 1 movie for a little while until a space opera came out and knocked it out. You're right.
On May 25th, 77. That's when Star Wars hit the scene. Yeah.
Carol O'Connor has been also quoted in interviews saying, "Hey, I took Archie Bunker. I threw a little bit of Jackie Gleason in there, and I threw a little bit of James Cagney in there, and that's where I got Archie Bunker from, the voice and everything." And I can watch Carol O'Connor's mannerisms and see Jackie Gleason, some of the takes, the reactions. Jackie was a great reactionary comic. He was a reactor.
Those expressions were priceless. His facial expressions were just priceless. And hey, Sheriff Culpepper in the Bond movies was kind of a forerunner to Sheriff Buford T. Justice and Smoking the Bandit.
He did, yeah, and then he went on to play another sheriff, kind of like that in Superman too.
Yeah, Clifton James, that's the actor.
Clifton James, and Clifton was a hilarious guy. Clifton was very, very funny guy. I remember the last, I think it was a dramatic role that Clifton did, was the judge in The Untouchables for Brian De Palma.
That's right. He did He did a $6 Million Man episode. Remember that? He was in the $6 Million Man.
When they were trying to reenact Steve's crash or whatever, was that the episode?
Yeah, Deadly Replay, I think is the title.
It's weird you bring that up. I just watched that episode about a week ago. Isn't that weird?
And he was in a Fall Guy playing a sheriff again. He got kind of typecast. A season 2 episode, which I have on 16mm film, called The Mighty Myron, with what's her name? Delta Burke is in it, Before Designing Women, and Denny Miller. And the orangutan. Wait, real quick. The orangutan from the Clint Eastwood movies, Any Which Way You Can, is in that. Anyway.
Clyde. Good old Clyde.
Good old right turn, Clyde. Yep.
Well, I'll suggest a television movie. I mean, there's so many things you can watch with Jackie Gleason, and I can't praise the guy enough. I've heard that he might have had an alcohol problem. He might have been short-tempered. He might have been difficult to deal with here and there, but most geniuses are. When it comes to Hollywood and television, he was great for a reason. And there's a TV movie he did. Last thing he ever did with he reunited with Art Carney. It was called Izzy and Mo.
Yes, yeah, a mobster comedy. Yeah,
there were a couple of old guys that kind of went undercover and helped them bust the mob and the speakeasies and the liquor salesmen. Back in the day, and they still have the chemistry. Still a great movie. That was directed by Jackie Cooper, that played in Superman as Perry White, and it was one of the original Little Rascals. Directed by Jackie Cooper. Yeah, Izzy and Mo. If you can find it, I got it on DVD. I don't know. It's probably out of print now, but if you can watch it, give Izzy and Mo a watch. It's really fun to see those two guys back together again. Him and Art Carney.
Right on. And Jackie Cooper had directed episodes of The Rockford Files before that as well. He did.
That was a great episode of the podcast Podblast on the radio. But it was great to hear all of that about the Honeymooners. I've seen every one of them countless times. I've seen the Kinescope Lost episode. And you said did you say Funny Money was your favorite episode?
Of the Classic 39, yeah.
Yeah, that is a great one. I would have to put that up there as one of my favorite. I think my favorite though that I would choose is the Bensonhurst Bomber.
Oh yeah, with the blonde bombshell. And isn't that one where Alice dresses up like a blonde bombshell herself?
No. That's Alice in the Blonde.
That's right.
Bomber is when he picks on the little guy in the pool room, and his big guy comes out and wants to fight Ralph and wants to fight him at the boxing ring.
That's it. What was I thinking? That's right.
Yeah, that one is so funny. It gets me. They all get me every time. But interesting, they started out, with the early episodes before the 39 came along. But you know what? The ones that came live, because the show continued. I don't know why. I mean, Jackie stopped the syndicated ones, but he did keep on doing them right on up into the late 50s on his variety show as live Honeymooners skits. And they would redo ones from the old days, and they just weren't as funny. The later ones, when they try to redo them, I don't know whether they didn't feel like writing one or they thought people didn't see it. Some of those later ones in the 50s kind of lost something because they were redone. The earlier ones were much funnier than the ones they tried to redo over again.
And the color ones I didn't care for. I hate to sound like someone we both know, but I didn't like the color ones with Jane Keane.
Well,
they changed the cast. The women changed. The women actors were replaced. And it wasn't very good.
What's funny about the color ones is I like them only because of their nostalgic quality, and I'm not a big fan of the music part of them, but I do like just the acting part of it because they come back together and did a Honeymooners Valentine's in 1976 or 77, and they did a lot of those came along, and they finally came out on DVD though, which I was really happy to complete my collection with. Is they finally came out, and it's odd seeing Jackie looking like Sheriff Buford T. Justice with the mustache as Ralph Cramden after Smoking the Bandit. It's still funny to see him looking that way. So and he even made a point. He made a point of it on the episode to be combing his mustache, like, "Hey, I'm not shaving this off. I'm going to make a point of it that it's here."
He may have been filming Smoking the Bandit. Maybe that's why he couldn't shave it off.
He may have. And
that was filmed that was filmed in 76. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Comedic genius, Jackie Gleason. Great show. Loved it. Will always he'll stand the test of time. He'll last forever. He'll always be there. I don't think Jackie Gleason will ever be going anywhere as far as legend goes.
Very well said. And he just was a legend, and he died way too young. But he lives on forever thanks to film and digital and video and our memories.
What's odd is Jackie's passed away from a cancer that seemed to have nothing to do with his lifestyle. He did not die of he didn't die of cancer that had anything to do that I think that from what I read that had anything really to do with his smoking or his drinking, either one. that you usually associate cancer from smoking and drinking, the kind that you get. It wasn't that type of cancer from what I understand.
That's true.
Which is odd too. So if you think about it. And I would say anybody should get those books out there. There's one called James Bacon wrote one of his biographies, and there was another one. There's 2 or 3 biographies out there about Jackie Gleason, and you can really read any of them. A lot of them are going to say the same thing about him, but depending on who you read or which author it is. But fantastic comedian, and I consider myself one of the biggest Jackie Gleason fans, along with you.
And I, too, watched him on WGNX 46 in the mid-'80s. That's when I first discovered the show when I was a teenager. It was on Channel 46 at 11 o'clock, and they played The Twilight Zone right after it. And I like that episode. Do you remember from the Classic 39, Young at Heart, where they go roller skating?
Yes.
And obviously there are a lot of kids in the audience when they tape that in front of a live studio audience, because all these kids,
they're cheering.
These kids are going, steady now, steady now. He's like trying to balance this tray of refreshments on roller skates, and they're all going, steady now. It's kind of funny anyway.
That's right. And they had that guy come out, the teenager picking up the girl, talking all of his 50 slang and stuff, and they're all just screaming, like, I guess it's really something.
Yeah, it was a funny audience. And I think MeTV still airs them, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it'll be back on the schedule because, they have like their Summer of Me, and they change out their programming quite often on a quarterly basis. So I'm sure the Honeymooners will be back if it's not on right now on MeTV on Sunday night. But the best thing is just to stream it or buy the
Yeah.
DVDs uncut. You know, I'm still a believer in owning my content. I stream like everyone else, but you know, the stream gods can give and they can taketh away, as we saw with the shows like The Office and Friends when it went from Netflix to NBC streaming service. I got to own those shows that I love, like the Honeymooners, that are just classics. I don't want to be a victim of the shell game, the streaming shell game.
Right. You might can look it up before you get off the air tonight. Lucy and Jackie did a TV movie together. I can't remember what it was called, but it was. I remember what it was called. 1975. They did a TV movie together called 3 for 2. I think it's the only time, other than Here's Lucy, that they were ever on in something like that together. It's a television movie, 1975, called 3 for 2. And it stars Jackie Gleason and Lucille Ball together. I was so glad they got to do something together before they moved on. You know,
We'll look that up. 3 for 2, Jackie Gleason. Wow, two legends right there.
Yeah, I have a DVD copy of it somewhere. I'll dig it up. And Jackie did appear on Lucy's third show. She started out with I Love Lucy, then she went on to the Lucy show in the '60s with Viv, and she was Lucy Carmichael.
Yeah, Mr. Mooney. Yeah.
Late 60s, early 70s, she did a show called Here's Lucy, where she's this little, the title sequence has got her as a little stop motion figure coming on, and it's about her, and it's got her real daughter and son in the show with her. And that episode has her taking a tour. I think it was a Hollywood tour of actors' houses, and they wind up at Jack Benny's house, and they walk in the whole tour bus with her. And at the end, they're like, "Hey, we're making hamburgers. Call them. See if the bus driver wants something. Hey, Ralph, get in here if you're hungry." So Jackie walks in as we're out crammed, and this is early 70s, and fixes a hamburger and takes the money away from Jack Benny and puts it on the hamburger like lettuce. He's like, "Wait a minute, that's not lettuce." And he starts to eat the burger, and right before he eats it, he goes, "How sweet it is!" And Lucy looks at him, starts laughing, and they all clap, and it was a great appearance.
That's what I'm reading it right now. It's from a 1968 episode of Here's Lucy. It says, despite what the...
Okay, yeah. I knew it was close to the 70s. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Someone's put that clip on YouTube, so you can't see it before they yank it down. It's still up there, I think. Just put Jackie Gleason in Here's Lucy with Lucille Ball, and it might pop up, and you'll see it. But it's a great little ending. They even play the Honeymooners theme when he walks in. It's great.
That's cool, man. So, what do you have coming up on your show this Saturday on BK on the Air?
You know, the regular stuff. I mean, we're going to be talking about retro geeky stuff. We'll play some nostalgic classic bits, maybe some classic commercials. I haven't really planned a lot yet, but we'll flash the audience of the weird news of the week, and we'll hopefully have Channel Star Wars giving their Star Wars, and the Reverend Pat McCormick of the Golden Age of TV will save our souls and our deficits that we have in our memory to help us remember classic television shows that we might have forgot. So we got a lot of stuff coming out. You might be there if you're available. You might be on the air with us too this Saturday if you want to come back up. We got a lot coming up. It'll be fun.
Cool. Well, you know me, I'm always game for that. I was fishing for an invite. Can't you tell?
Well, you snagged me. You caught me with the hook.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. I'll plan on it. And, I'm going to play this rare Jackie Gleason interview from 1977 with Harry Reasoner from 60 Minutes in a minute. And I think you might enjoy that too. You may have already seen it because you're so knowledgeable about pop culture and the things that we both seem to like. We have a lot in common, you and I. Have you seen that interview?
Great show.
Thank you.
I think I may have seen that. I haven't seen it in a while, so it'd be good to see it again.
Or hear it.
Great show.
Thank you.
Great show, and love Jackie Gleason. Always will, and take care. And looking forward to you doing your retro things every Wednesday and the Nostalgic Podblast every weekend on Fistful Radio.
Yes, sir. And it also will be live on this Sunday in our Facebook group, The Nostalgic Podblast, talking about black cinema and black sitcoms, a tribute. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. I'll be there for it. I appreciate it. I'll call in and we'll have a good time. It's awesome.
Sounds great. Well, have a good one, Barry King. BK on the air every Saturday, live, 10 a.m. to noon on WBHF. Make it a part of your weekend. Take it easy, Barry.
So long, pal.
Bye. Barry King. He's a great, great new friend. So I want to continue reading this real quick before I sign off. It's really early in the morning as we do this live. I was talking about the Dumont Network and Cavalcade of Stars. That was the show that launched the Honeymooners as a live skit in 1950. But at first, Jack Carter was the MC from 1949 to 1950, and then Jerry Lester, and then Jackie took over in 1950, from 1950 to 1952. And then in the summer, Larry Storch from F Troop fame was an MC on the Cavalcade of Stars. And the regulars were Art Carney, Perk Kelton, as we mentioned, the original Alice Cramden, the June Taylor Dancers, who Jackie maintained on his show on CBS, the Jackie Gleason Show, and Sammy Spear and the Charlie Spear Orchestra did the music. And it was a big budget variety show. And that was really the trend in those days. That seemed to be taking over television in 1949. So Dumont's answer to such hits as NBC's Texaco Star Theater and CBS's Ed Sullivan Show was The Cavalcade of Stars, which gave early exposure to a number of talented performers who later became major TV celebrities. The first host, as I mentioned, was Jack Carter, who maintained a lightning pace throughout the 60 minutes, mugging, tossing off gags, mugging for the camera, and working with the guests in skits. And just as he began to build a following, NBC stole him away in February 1950 to front the first hour of its Saturday night review on the same night as Cavalcade of Stars. His replacement was round-faced comic Jerry Lester, who was no less manic, but who remained on the show for only 4 months until July 1950. He later became TV's first late-night star on NBC's original Broadway open house. Lester's replacement and one of the major talents on Dumont during the next 2 years was Jackie Gleason. Gleason, who had starred in the first unsuccessful version of The Life of Riley in 1949 to 1950, immediately began to build a large and loyal following, a process that was helped when Cavalcade moved to a more, I can't pronounce this word, a more propitious time period on Friday night, away from the competition of Saturday's Sid Caesar Imogene Coco Hour. One of the chief delights of Cavalcade was the variety of comic characterizations that Gleason introduced on the show, many of which he was to continue throughout his TV career. The first to become enormously popular in 1950 was The Bachelor, to which he portrayed a helpless, spouseless male bedeviled by the necessities of housekeeping for one. Typical routines, all in pantomime, where the bachelor gets his own breakfast, doing the laundry, and dressing for a date, all to the soft music of Somebody Loves Me. Later editions included the top-hatted playboy Reggie Van Gleason III, the poor soul, who had a great heart, by the way, another mute character who didn't speak, Joe the bartender talking about his patrons, Crazy Guggenheim, let's see, Moriarty the Undertaker, Duddy Duddleston, and Bookshelf Robinson, the continually oppressed Fenwick Babbitt, and Charlie Bratton the Loudmouth. The best, however, was probably the Honeymooners, introduced in the fall of 1951. Bus driver Ralph Cramden was the perfect incarnation for the always boastful, always scheming, always thwarted poor slob who would never get away from his dingy apartment and nagging wife. Part of Gleason's success lay with the excellent supporting cast, which included Perk Kelton as the original Alice Cramden and Art Carney as his foil in many of the sketches. Yeah, he played a cop early on, Art Carney, before he played Ed Norton, and a whole lot of other characters. But his stable of top-notch writers like Joe Bigelow and Harry Crane helped him develop the Honeymooners. But most of the appeal lay with Gleason himself, and when CBS lured him away in 1952, a reported offer of $8,000 per week instead of the $1,600 per week he was getting from Dumont There was nowhere for Cavalcade to go but down. After lingering through the summer with comedian Larry Storch as host, it ended in September 1952. So that brings us to the Jackie Gleason Show, which debuted on CBS on September 20th, 1952. And it was just a wonderful show. It had not just the Honeymooners skits, but other skits as well with the characters that Jackie had developed. The lure of money brought Jackie Gleason Show to CBS in the fall of 1952. The rotund comic had been starring in the Cavalcade of Stars on Dumont since the summer of 1950, and he had developed several characters that became staples. When CBS offered him a staggering increase in weekly pay, the $8,000 a week compared to $1,600 that Dumont was paying, he couldn't say no. Jackie's original CBS Variety Hour, done live from New York, bore a strong similarity to his previous show on Dumont. His second banana, Art Carney, made the move with him, as did the June Taylor Dancers and Ray Block's Orchestra. Audrey Meadows and Joyce Randolf were added to the cast of regulars, primarily in the Honeymooners sketches. And most of the characters that Gleason had developed on Dumont were honed into perfection on CBS. Among them, in addition to the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden were the Poor Soul, Joe the Bartender, the Loudmouth, Reggie Van Gleason III, Rudy the Repairman, and the rest. And there were some great live Christmas specials that they did on the Jackie Gleason Show on CBS starting in 1952, where all the characters that Jackie played were highlighted. And he would just change his clothes live backstage. And Christmas, the Honeymooners Christmas, was just one of the best skits. And I remember in the first one in 1952 on CBS, there was a little trumpet playing kid. He was 12 years old at the time, who debuted, and he played Blue Skies on his trumpet. That was Frankie Avalon. And then in 1953, they basically did the same story, the same skit, the first couple years there. And then they had also a pretty good New Year's Eve special, New Year's Eve with the Honeymooners, which was a sketch. I say it's a special, but it's really just a sketch and a part of the Jackie Gleason Show. But it aired, let's see, the Jackie Gleason Show. The dates, I mentioned September 20th, 52, and it ended September 12th, 1970 on CBS. Wow. Well, they brought it back. So it ran September 52 to January 55 on CBS Saturday nights from 8 to 9. And then September 1956 to June 1957 on CBS from 8 to 9 as well. And then it moved to Friday night, 8:30 to 9 on CBS, October 1958 to January 1959. Then he had done the American Scene magazine, and then the Jackie Gleason Show returned September 62 to May 1968 on CBS Saturday nights from 7:30 to 8:30. And then September 68 to September 1970, it ran again Saturdays from 7:30 to 8:30. And then the Honeymooners, as we mentioned before, not to be repetitive, that started airing on October 1st, 1955 on the Dumont Network. No, it was on CBS, my bad, on CBS. And it was last telecast May 9th, 1971, because they brought it back in color, as Barry and I talked about when he called in a moment ago. Now, I want to play an interview. Let's see here. Yes, I want to play an interview. And when the Honeymooners Classic 59 ended on CBS, the Jackie Gleason Show continued. And so they just continued to do live skits. And this was really cool. They did a storyline that lasted for about 2 months where Ralph Cramden had won a contest and he could tour Europe. So he actually had some pocket money and he was out of the dingy apartment and he went all across Europe, a different European country each week. He'd be in Italy, he'd be in London with his pals, with the Nortons, and it was really cool. And that was only in the live versions in 1957. Those stories aired live, and I liked them. I thought they were really good. And then there was another one in 1957 in the Jackie Gleason Show where Art Carney confronted Ed Norton and Ralph Cramden confronted Jackie Gleason. And they did a lot of trickery and camera tricks to make that happen live, but it was really cool. It was To Catch a Star is the name of that skit, and it was released by MPI Home Video. And I remember I started buying those up in 1985, and I just saved my allowance and I would buy different volumes of the classic lost episodes of the Honeymooners, which were just skits and kinescopes of the Jackie Gleason show. Now, I want to play a little bit of this interview of Jackie Gleason with Harry Reasoner, I believe it is, from 1977. And here it is.
Away we go with Jackie Gleason. Ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to present the great one himself, a man of many, many talents, raconteur, comedian, actor, musical composer, a Renaissance man who plays the leading role in Sly Fox at the theater. Jackie, welcome once again. It's been a long time since we've had a chance to talk on television.
Yes.
And I'm delighted that you're looking so good and dressed so casually. This is your favorite form of dress when you're casual, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not Harry Reasoner, by the way. I made a mistake.
Asked me if I jogged. I don't. I jug. But I like this kind of an outfit. I'm sick. I do 5 fast changes in the second act in the show, so I'm tired of putting on clothes.
I don't blame you.
He's wearing a blue
Talking
jumpsuit.
about Jug, you're famous for that little cup you use on most of your appearances. How does that come about?
Well, I did a show called You're in the Picture. I think you remember. It was the biggest bomb that ever took place.
Bigger than Skidoo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, God, there's another beauty. But I demanded from CBS permission to go on the following week and tell the audience how dreadful this thing was. And strangely enough, they gave me the permission. And just before the show, I realized that going out in front of an audience and talking about a bomb for an hour would sound like sour grapes. So I told the girl, I said, just before the show starts, walk out with a bottle of J&B and make sure the audience knows that it's J&B and pour it into my cup. And I knew that every time I reached for that cup, the audience would understand what was in it. And it would break up the fact that I was saying how stupid we were to do the show. And that's how the cup started, and I've used it ever since.
If I recall that explanation or that apology, you sat at a little table, didn't you?
I just sat in a chair.
With a table alongside with the cup on it.
Yeah, we got great reviews for that.
Yeah.
And then we continued to do the show. I still did that, and we did it for, I think, 13, 14 weeks. And we got good notices. We had good ratings, and I had to go to Paris to do Gigot. And I left it. I'd love to do a show like that again.
Just sit there and converse with the audience.
Gab
You cover a lot of areas, Jackie.
That's
Jackie,
the audience if they want.
You mentioned reviews a second ago, and you got good reviews for that apology. And now you open Thursday night in the Sly Fox. Friday morning's paper carried 2 reviews. It's difficult how expert reviewers, as we have in Chicago, came out with such divergent opinions. Glenna Sykes of the Chicago Sun-Times loved it. It was How Sweet It Is was the headline.
Yeah.
And Linda Weiner of the Tribune was far less sanguine about the show. She
an interesting thing about Linda Weiner's review is that she reviewed my shoes.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right.
And that's the first time I've ever been in a show where my shoes were reviewed. And I think that makes some commentary on a review when they look at an actor's shoes. And incidentally, she was wrong because the shoes I'm wearing, she claimed were suitable for a country club in Florida. They happen to be the exact replicas of slippers with the little elastic instead of the laces of 1880 shoes. So she was wrong on that. But of course, she's entitled to her opinion. If she didn't like the show, fine. And she opens up with a very dichotomous statement. She says, the baffling hilarity. Well, I don't understand that. I'm supposed to make people hilarious if I can. And why should that be baffling?
I would assume, without reading Linda's mind, that to her, she couldn't understand why it was hilarious. To her, it was baffling that the people were found it funny.
Well,
I was in the
should
audience.
think that a woman who reviews shows over the years would be able to make a judgment when she hears people laughing.
The very fact that people are laughing is
but it was baffling
to be reported in itself. I enjoyed the show very much, Jackie. I guess at one point I want to continue with the Linda Weiner report. She makes remarks about the low-grade humor, some of the sexual humor. She calls
she ought to hype up her grammar. If she's going to talk about low-grade humor, I'll talk about low-grade grammar. She starts off her column by saying Sly Fox Witch is appearing at the Blackstone Theater, which is an incongruous grammatical mistake. And I'm surprised a woman who is supposed to be scholarly would use such kind of words.
She made some remarks about the number of references to the penis and the low-grade jokes, low-grade humor used in the show. Now, you have always been a man who's exemplified clean humor. Everything you've done has been away from sex, away from the four-letter dirty words and so forth. Did you have any reservations about doing this type of humor in the
To begin with, I don't use any four-letter words in the
but
show.
the implication is there.
And second of all, you're right. I do have the distinction of appearing on particular media where I know that you're not supposed to say certain words or to act salacious. I wouldn't do some of the television shows that are on now. I'd never do those things. But that's television. We are now in a theater where you're charging $17 or something to get in. So you imagine that no kids are going to show up for $17. And if they do show up, it should be with parental guidance. We have in our ads, it's a bawdy, racy thing. And what people accept in the theater today is an entirely different thing, what they accepted years ago. What we do in the show, I would rather say something shocking or say a four-letter word and get a laugh than to say a four-letter word just to impugn on an audience something shocking, to make it vivid, a line vivid that you say. That's bad. But if you make people laugh, that's my business. That's what I'm supposed to do. And that's why I can't understand her gorgeous line, baffling hilarity.
I didn't see anything baffling about the hilarity because I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, hilarious, as I should say. And the audience certainly laughed. There were a lot of laughs in there.
Well, I think it would give me too much time to her review, but I will say this. As I said before, she's entitled to her own opinion. But if she's going to be scholarly, she better start studying grammar.
Ooh.
And if she's going to quote what is on Johnson's epitaph, she better quote it correctly. And I don't think she should ever review an actor's shoes.
That's like Paul Simon.
That's all I have to say about her.
That's like the Mr. Famous reviewer in New York, Mr. Simon, who reviews their physical appearances. You've heard about him. Jackie, you've been around for a long, long time now. Does adverse criticism bother you, or do you have a thick skin about that?
No, it doesn't. The only criticism that I value comes directly from an audience. If they're not, and incidentally, a comedian's whole life is run by immediate criticism. He tells a joke, and if the laugh isn't there, he knows right away he's bombing. A dancer has a couple of choruses to dance to impress an audience. A singer has a couple of choruses to charm a group. In a play, you have a whole 2.5 hours to make your point and to win an audience. But when a comedian walks out on the stage and he says, a funny thing happened, it better be funny, because the audience will tell him right away. It's an immediate criticism. That's why comedy is so tough to do.
When you look at television today and at some of the nightclubs, which you never patronized, or at least not very often, are you a little disappointed in what you're seeing your fellow comedians doing?
Well, they're not my fellow comedians. They take monologists now and put them into shows that are storyline shows, and it's an entirely different business. If you're a scene comic, that's entirely different than telling monologues. It's very difficult to do scene comic, storyline comedy. And to take a fellow who's a popular monologist and put him into a storyline plot isn't a good idea, and it doesn't work out many times. As you can see, the shows are going off right and left. Violence has been erased from television, so they had to go to the next thing, sex. If you watch any of the trailers saying, don't forget to watch tonight, so-and-so is going to be on, will she get in bed with George? Oh, will George do this to her? It's all sex. They don't say anything about the funny situation you're going to see that the writers wrote. It's just the easy way out. It's like in burlesque, when we'd say to a comic, you're a pants dropper. A guy would drop his pants for a laugh.
The easiest way to get a laugh.
Cheap shots.
Jackie, there's a moral to Sly Fox. In addition to being great hilarious and moving in some regards. But there's a great moral there about the greed, and the man who is easiest to take is the guy who's trying to take you. We had a guy named Yellow Kid Wilder out here, one of the great con artists of all time.
Yeah, I know.
And his point was always that the easiest guys to take were the guys who's trying to take me.
That's right. If you can find a man who is cheap or a cheat, it's a cinch you can make money from him. It's the same thing in golf. If a guy starts to lie about his handicap, you know, if you've been playing golf, and you just adjust your own handicap. So in the end, he gets screwed.
Yeah. That's the point Ben Jonson, who wrote the all poem from which the show is on which the show is based, was making way back there in 1600 or something, whenever it was first.
To vividly show avarice, and the result of avarice is a moral lesson.
Sure. Now, you say the show was written originally for you by Larry Gilbert.
Yes,
you
with me in mind. I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to go to New York. I don't like New York anymore. It's a dirty city, and that everyone's running around frightened, and I didn't want to be in that atmosphere. And I told him I didn't want to do it, not even to send the script to me. But after the show had been open for about 6 months, someone got a script down to me, and I went into my den, and it was lying on my desk, and I picked it up, and I started to read it, and I knew that this was something I should do.
Mm-hmm. Now, the tour calls for New York. Are you going to do New York on this tour?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough show to do, Cup. And
New York used to be your bailiwick. You were the king of New York for a long time.
Gosh, if anybody was a New Yorker, I think I was.
You were.
And I never went to bed before 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd only go to bed then to find out if the pillows were soft. I'd be up immediately, take a shower, and dress, and go to the next place that was open to have fun. And I love New York. But New York has changed. Toots is gone, of course. And most of the guys that were my friends or colleagues, or guys that we'd sit around telling lies to, are gone. They've all disappeared. And for a guy my age and like me, there is no reason for me to go to New York. Everybody's disappeared.
In the great days of New York, Jackie was a regular at a place called Toots Shore. Now, Toots was a huge, garrulous, but a very lovable character. He was one of the best saloon keepers in the nation, certainly one of the best known. And one of the great stories involves a foot race between Toots Shore and Jackie Gleason when both were loaded to the gills, had enough to wager a bet on who could run around that block fastest.
Yes.
And would you pick the story up from there, Jackie?
Well,
because it's a great story.
We were sitting at a table. Jimmy Cannon, the sports writer, was there, and Joe DiMaggio, and a couple of the other regulars. And Toots and I got into an argument about who was more athletically inclined. And I said, Toots, don't talk to me about athletics. I said, you get winded opening clams. So... And he said, well, let's do something. I said, well, I don't want to fight you, Toots. I like you, and I don't want to hurt you. So we finally decided we'd have a race. So we got out in front of it, and I said, Toots, so we won't collect the crowd. You run one way, and I'll run the other. And I said, we'll both come in. Whoever gets in front of the door first wins. He said, okay. And I made sure that I ran down towards 6th Avenue because I could hop in a cab there, and it was all one way with the
right
around the block. And, of course, Toots ran around, and I was standing in front of the door with all the guys smoking a cigarette. He says, all right, you beat me. And then we went inside, and a couple of drinks later, I heard a roar. Rah! And he turned around to me, and he says, I didn't pass you.
Yes.
A lot of wonderful things happened in Toots Shores.
We spent many an hour there, Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie, let's go back to your youth now. You lost your mother and you lost your father who disappeared from your life at an early age. Who really reared Jackie Gleason? Who gave you your start in life?
Well, my father disappeared when I was 7 years old, and then my mother had to go to work. And I was alone a great deal of the time. And because my mother had lost a son earlier, when I was 3 years old, he died, my brother Clemens, and he was 14 at the time. And then with my father just disappearing, she was very protective of me. And I didn't go to school till I was 8 years old. They had to come and get me and tell her that she had to send me to school. She taught me to read. I could read before I went to school, but there was one thing wrong with it. She had an Irish accent. And when she taught me to read, a word like think, she pronounced as tink. And that's the way I spoke. And when I got into school, I could read, but I read the way she had taught me to pronounce the words. And I was the butt of all of the other kids. But I think I grew up quite alone.
Well, your mother died when you were 15.
Yeah.
Then who did you live with?
No one. I went right. After the funeral, we were sitting on the stoop. And I said, well, I guess I'll go. And the Dunahys, who were great family, said, well, stay with us. I said, no. I said, I got to go to work. I had 36 cents, which is a standing start. And I went to New York, and it cost me a nickel to get there. Then I bought two, I remember perfectly, bought two apple and cream cheese waffles that they sold at a thing. That cost 20 cents or something. Anyway, I was broke, without a cent, and for some reason or other, and I still can't understand it, I wasn't apprehensive. And I ran into a friend of mine, Sammy Birch. He's dead, God rest his soul. And I told him, I said, I have no place to stay, Sammy. He says, well, come on up to my place. When I got there, I found out there were two other guys there. Everybody was staying at the Markwell Hotel. And I stayed there, and he called up some agents and got me a couple of jobs. And then I took off. But
that's when you started in swimming, wasn't it?
Well, no, I was an exhibition swimmer and diver when I was 10 years old, 11 years old.
I didn't know that.
And from there, and then I racked balls in a pool room and learned
how to be the hustler.
I became a hustler, and I'd make a couple of bucks that way. People say that comedians lead sad lives when they're kids. That might be so, but I never realized that I was leading a sad life. Everyone around the neighborhood was broke. So I thought I was the same as everyone. I thought that's how you live. You were broke. Everybody was broke.
It's depressing.
And my mother was such a wonderful woman and gave me so much love that I didn't miss anything there, even though my father had left.
Your mother was a very unusual lady. I remember you telling me once that she worked in the wintertime. She has a strap cardboard around her legs to keep them warm.
No, it wasn't cardboard.
Or paper.
That's the day, what you're speaking of is the day that I decided to be a good boy. She was getting dressed to go to work about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had belonged to the Catholic Boys Brigade, and we had uniforms with leggings. And I saw her wrapping the leggings around her leg and putting her stockings over, because she had to walk 5 blocks through the snow to get the train to take her to work. She was a change maker on the subway. And I watched her doing this, and a bell went off or whatever. But I knew from that moment on that I had to do everything this woman asked me and to give her all the love I could possibly give her, because she was doing something for me that was unheard of as far as I was concerned.
Beautiful story. Jackie, in your press interview the other day, they asked you some questions about some of your fellow entertainers, and I thought you handled it beautifully at the spur of the moment with your conversation. Do you mind if I throw these names out and
Not
get
at
your
all.
reaction?
Not at all.
I thought the one you paid the greatest tribute to was Art Carney, who co-starred, I will use the word advisedly, on
Now
the
we're
Honeymooners
talking.
with you.
Well, if
Art
I
Carney.
spoke any other
As he
way
fires
about
up another
Carney
cigarette.
except complimentary, I'd be a liar and a very deceitful man. Art Carney, working with Art Carney was the greatest experience I've ever had in my life. He is the greatest comic sensitive I've ever met. And I have said it before, and I say it again. He's responsible for 75% of my success on television. He is a great actor, as now the world knows, since he got the Academy Award. And on top of that, a great comic. I don't know of anybody who is as good in what he does as Art Carney. Art Carney is the top.
Barbara Streisand.
Well, as I said, I said she looks like midnight, but she sings like early morning.
Yeah.
And she does. She's a great singer. Years ago, when Merv Griffin had a show, I said, I heard a dame sing the other night.
What dame?
I said, she doesn't look too good. And this was before she had a nose fixed. You know she had a nose. Well, she did.
Must have been the same one who did mine.
Yes, yes. Anyway, I should put her on, and he got her on, and she was a riot. She sang like an angel. She has an extraordinary range of voice and great phrasing and feeling, and she's just wonderful. I think she's the best singer around.
Now, you paid a similar compliment, but not quite as lavish, for Martha Raye, with whom you have appeared.
Martha Raye, and I know if she hears me say this, she won't take offense. She's a hoodlum. She's a great dame to be around. She's just as much at home with the guys as she is with the girls. She's a brother, she's a sister, she's a mother. She had a voice that was tantalizingly romantic, with that hoarseness, and to see that voice coming out of that large mouth, but realizing the heart that was behind it. She was a wonderful dame.
Little long there, but I thought it was a very interesting interview. And Martha Raye, a lot of people that are younger might remember her from Alice. She played Mel Sharple's mother on Alice, and she did have very interesting expressions. So I appreciate y'all bearing with me. God, I can't believe I looked up and it's like 2:20 in the morning. Good Lord. Just wanted to document Nostalgic Podblast 3, which was not on YouTube at the time and just got a little carried away. But I want to thank Barry King for calling in, of BK on the Air, and sharing his stories of being a fan of Jackie Gleason. And thanks for watching. And we'll be back Sunday at 3:30 in our Facebook group, Atlanta time, 3:30 p.m., the Nostalgic Podblast. And I guess it looks like I'll be on BK on the Air, 10 a.m. to noon this Saturday on WBHF, and tune in live, or you could just stream it from their website. WBHF is the radio station. It's been around for 75 years, almost 75 years coming up, if you can believe that. But our topic is going to be Black cinema and sitcoms, which I'm a big fan of, and we're going to cover that this coming Sunday on the Nostalgic Podblast. So sleep well, sleep well, and what's the cliche? Sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. We'll see you next time on the Nostalgic Podblast. Good night.